everyone. Now, I guess the reason that you're tuning in now is because you have just listened to Janie's wonderful piece, My Lump and Me. Or if you haven't, then get off now and go and listen to it and then come back to this podcast. Because this particular podcast is the companion piece to the wonderful piece, as I said, that Janie has written, My Lump and Me, about her cancer journey. And we want to talk about really the making of it now, don't we? And here is Janie. She is, it's not just me rambling on, she is here.
No, I'm still here.
she's still here. And so we just want to talk about this journey that Janie made and the reason that she wrote the piece. So I'm going to launch in, first of all. When did you start to see the funny side of your cancer? I mean, we should tell everybody, in fact, what the cancer was, shouldn't we, for those of you that possibly haven't heard it yet, to be truthful.
Yep, I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the beginning of 2019, and it turned out to be stage 3, so it had spread to my lymph nodes, although I didn't know that at the time. So it's, God knows, that's 5 years down the line now. Here I am, still standing, everything fine.
Yeah. And when you were first, we can talk about that journey that you went on when you were first diagnosed, but I suppose with this particular piece, it's a lovely piece because it's a light-hearted look with other moments in it, of course. But when did you start to see the funny side of this situation that you found yourself in?
Well, almost. I mean, on the day that I was diagnosed, there was an experience I had where I thought, this is absolutely not funny right now, but one day this is going to be. So even though it was awful, even though I was in shock, even though I had no idea what was going on around me, there was still parts of my head that was thinking, bloody hell, there is a funny side to this. And I actually sort of came back and started writing just a few, very, very, very few sketchy notes within a few days.
Did you? That's really interesting. So it wasn't in retrospect. You were actually writing at the time that it was all happening to you.
Yeah, just a few words.
Yeah.
Not a sort of big piece about it, but just some words to remind me of the funny things.
Yeah, because you know, as a person, I mean, you're one of my oldest and dearest friends. I mean, you've got funny bones. You're a brilliant comedy writer. So do you think you see a lot of situations then possibly through comedy? Is that the way you get through things, and particularly in this particular situation, do you think, or did that help you?
It certainly helped me, because it helped me to get some sort of control in a situation in which I had no control at all. Because one of the things when you get cancer, or I expect a lot of other major health problems that I don't know about, one of the things that happens is that you're in somebody else's process, you're in somebody else's system, and they're lovely and they're kind, but you're not in control of it, they're in control of it. So it was my way of getting some control back. And I think also with laughter, with humour, when you're laughing at a situation, you're not in it. You're not in it experiencing and feeling all the feelings of that situation. You're looking at it from outside. So that was really, really helpful to me, to be able to kind of step outside myself, if you like, and look at this person with the very greying underwear, having to sort of waft it around in front of people on a daily basis.
So yes, you were able to stand outside, and whilst it was you, it wasn't you. You were observing this very painful and shocking journey. I mean, when you were first diagnosed, Janie, would you say you were in shock? I mean, how did you initially deal with it, do you think?
I just couldn't believe it.
Right.
I've had lots of lumps before in the past. They've never been anything. And the biggest thing I thought was, it's not fair, which is a very childish thing to think. But because Nick, my husband, was just finishing chemo for a really, really, really bad cancer, that it's just like, no, we can't both have cancer at the same time. That's just, something's gone wrong. I wish to file a complaint to the universe, because that's just not on. So I had this real feeling that there must have been a mistake somewhere, because it just wasn't fair. Ridiculous, isn't it?
And was Nick when you got the diagnosis, was Nick with you? I suppose what I'm coming to is, how do you deal with telling those that you're closest to as well that this has happened? You know what? That's you know.
Yeah, that's
tricky.
really hard. Nick was with me, so that was helpful. But yeah, it's very hard because you need to tell people, but you have to kind of wait until you're able to talk about it, because once you start to tell people, then they have their feelings about it, and then you have to deal with their feelings, which if you're still dealing with your own, that's really quite a thing to do. So yeah, told my daughters once we had more information and we knew exactly what we were up against. Yeah, there were more scans and things to be had. We told them, and then we told you about the same time as we told them, and told my sister, and told and told other people. But one of the very difficult things is that you are giving people that you love information that's going to cause them distress.
And whilst you're dealing with your own fallout too, you're having then to potentially deal with other people's fallout. When
and reassure them.
Yeah. And, and you need all your energy to get through the situation, don't you, that you're in.
Yeah.
So what was, I suppose, just going back initially, to when you found lumps, and as you say, you'd always had sort of lumpy breast. Did you need encouraging to go to the GP again?
Oh, God, I wouldn't have gone.
Really?
I wouldn't have gone. No, because I knew that it couldn't be cancer. So there was just no point. So it was probably about 10 days or so of feeling this lump every day when I had a shower, and saying to Nick, it's still then him saying, you really ought to phone the GP. And it's complicated because it was over Christmas and New Year. So that was the other thing that wasn't fair about it. So, I was just like, well, I don't want to bother the doctor. I don't want to bother the doctor over this lump that can't possibly be cancer. And if I've learned anything out of this, it is the minute you have anything that you think might be a bit odd, get it down to the doctor, phone the doctor, get down to the doctor, get someone to check it out, because they would rather be finding out sooner than later, and so would you.
Yeah.
But it really shocked me, because I think I'm quite a sensible woman, but I really, really, really didn't want to phone the GP.
And I think it's interesting, that one, isn't it? Because, I mean, you are sensible and you've had lumps before, so you have had things checked out. But there are a lot of people, I would imagine, well, we know, don't we, Janie, that with different sorts of cancers as well, that are so fearful about getting something checked out that actually then it can become almost too late with any form of cancer. It's really important to kind of face it. Although it's incredibly hard, because we all don't want to live with the potential or the negative, I suppose, of that could be.
That's right.
Sorry,
that's right. I mean, when you've got a lump, until somebody tells you that you've got cancer, you haven't got cancer. So you're not in a hurry to go and see somebody who might tell you the thing that you don't want to know.
Yeah. And did you feel, once you'd got into the system, as it were, of the process rather, did you, I sort of sensed it a bit from my reading of your wonderful words, that you were a bit like a parcel that was being sort of handed round to the next department and things. Did you feel that, or was the humanity there? I mean, were people kind and helpful, or did you lose sense of who you were in all that?
People were very kind. The breast cancer nurses in particular were very, very kind and very, very helpful, and very human. But basically you are in a system, and you are in a process, and you are a parcel, however beautifully or badly wrapped you are. You are a process going through their system, and that's because their system works. Would you, for somebody who's going to have to go through that, and that can happen, can't it, to 1 in 8 of us? We'll talk about that a bit later. But what would you say? Are there any tools, any advice you can give to folk that suddenly find themselves in that system? Any tools that you had to help you, or that you learned that helped you? This is going to sound trite and stupid, but breathing deeply got me through an awful lot. We've both done yoga, and I didn't find much need to do downward dog while I was doing this, but I did feel the need to breathe calmly, breathe deeply, particularly when I was having scans, that I didn't enjoy very much, because once you start to shallow breathe, your brain can't take anything in. And the other thing I'd say is, for me, it was, and with Nick's cancer, it's always very important for us to have somebody with you, so they take the notes. It's not when you're talking to a doctor, it's their job to take the notes, practically verbatim. You ask the questions, they take the notes, you check with them if there's anything you've forgotten to ask, because so many times for both of us, we come out of an appointment and the only thing that I could remember is the one thing they hadn't said. It's just ridiculous, but there's so much to focus on, so much new terminology. Your head's in a spin, however much, you're trying to sort of breathe deeply to take things in, but having somebody else to go, no, he didn't say that, he said this. It's like, okay, that. Or otherwise you'd think, did he really say that? But having somebody there who can say, that's what was said, that's what was agreed. That's really helpful.
And I guess probably they suggest that to you as well, do they? Those people that you're handed to, the different surgeons and nurses, or do they not? I mean, is there something that you discovered yourself?
I don't know, actually. I don't know. We just never asked them. We just always sort of turned up mob-handed.
Yes. No, I mean, I think that's perfectly sensible and totally understandable, because we just go into anxiety mode, don't we, in any situation like that, because you're dealing with so much. So deep breathing, always have somebody with you. Anything else? I mean, did they offer you counselling, or was that ever offered to you at all?
There was. There are all sorts of organisations that they put you in touch with that can offer counselling and so on. I kind of didn't really have time for it. There were so many scans and appointments and all the rest of it. I did end up, I was actually having counselling already, so I had my own counsellor, and she saw me through it, but I didn't have somebody specifically from one of the hospital or from one of the cancer organisations to offer counselling.
But they do offer, but there is that access to all sorts of information as they're on that journey, Janie.
Yes, there is. And I would just say a word here, because for me it was brilliant. I do know, we do have a friend who's a man who's had breast cancer, and I noticed from time to time at one of the clinics I went to, there was a man there. And I don't know how comfortable it is for them, because a lot of the breast cancer stuff is all done up in pink and very, very, very much aimed at women. And I would say if you're a man, or you've got a man in your life, you can get it too. And I hope that your experience of the services that are offered are as good as mine. Yeah.
That's really important to know, isn't it? And I guess it's also, yes, you did have good support around you, but it's good for people to know that maybe find themselves in this situation. If their support isn't quite as good initially, they can seek it, and it is out there, and you can get it if you just sort of. And now we're fortunate, don't we? We have the internet, but I know you've got mixed feelings about the internet, don't you?
Well, I do. One of the things
with regard to this,
one of the things that the oncologist said to Nick, he's had 2 cancers now, and me with my one, is don't Google this. So, I mean, what do? You go home, tap, 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 and then some of what you find is helpful, but quite a lot of what's on the internet is actually quite depressing, and it's stories that don't have a happy ending, which is kind of one of the reasons I wanted to do this, because I just wanted to offer a bit of reassurance and some hope to people who might be being diagnosed with breast cancer themselves, or know somebody who has, that there are some people like our very much missed and dear friend Sara Coward, who died from breast cancer, but for most of us it's treatable and curable. And so I don't want to diss anybody's journey or make make light of what anybody's suffering, because people do have an awful time with it. But this is just me putting across another point of view, or another message to the very pessimistic stories that I found when I googled.
This counteracts that, and I think you're right. And yes, it is a natural instinct, isn't it, to with anything to Google as much information, but you can just get with anything just overload, can't you? And you can't see the wood for the trees with it. So get the basic information, but don't just let it invade your space and invade your life too much. I suppose it's about getting on with the moment rather than getting absorbed in keeping your journey, but don't get absorbed in all the other stuff that some of which could be very, very negative. I'm sure I can understand that completely. Did it? I suppose. I mean, you're well through it now, which is just wonderful. I mean, was it 5? Did you say 5? It's 5 years.
Must be 5. Yeah, 5.5. Yeah.
Did it? Did it affect your confidence, Janie, when this happened to you? Do you think?
It affected my confidence in my own body,
right?
Because, and I think this is going to be, Nick does their side, I do this. It's probably, I spoke to other people who've had cancer. I think one thing that happens once you've had cancer is that every time you have a headache, you think it's a brain tumour.
Yes.
Yeah. So that I kind of lost my confidence in my body in that way, and it's. The one positive thing about Nick and I both having had cancer is that we can both say to each other, of course you've got a brain tumour. What else would it be?
Yeah.
And kind of jolly each other out of it. But so that happens. I mean, in terms of the mastectomy and the reconstruction, it was just brilliant. That whole part of the surgery was done so well that I don't have any problem with the way that my breasts look. They're probably better than they were before.
I mean, certainly for those of you that have listened already to your story, and those of you that haven't, I mean, that is quite a section actually on about the reconstruction and the amazing work at the end, and how you feel about that, and the disbelief that it could be so amazingly restored in that sense.
I know you really would not be able to tell which was the which was which. You really wouldn't. And I don't even think about it most days.
Do you not? Now that's interesting. No, you don't, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I don't have scars that are very. When I look at myself, there aren't any scars that I can see that look. That remind me of it. I just forget about it really. So that's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It is pretty amazing, and it I suppose it's a bit of a cross question in a way, but I mean. How has it changed, having this experience, how has it changed your attitude, or has it changed your attitude to life and so on and so forth?
That's an interesting question. I think probably Nick's cancer changed my attitude much more. That's why I ended up I was in a very fortunate position of when I was diagnosed, I'd already got a counsellor who'd helped me through the great shock of Nick's cancer, which so first of all they thought he had pancreatic cancer, and then they discovered it was actually non-Hodgkin lymphoma, which is a blood cancer and not curable, although he's been in remission now, touching wood, for a very, very long time, for sort of 7 years or something. That was much more of a shock, and because the whole future that I thought it was planned kind of just fell away, and everything, I realised that everything is impermanent, which of course it always was, but that's what made me realise that there's nothing's secure, nothing lasts forever, nothing's permanent, and we have to deal with this sort of life is actually a state of flux, and we have to learn to deal with it, which was hard.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, I suspect that you just suddenly you are you're not invincible anymore. I mean, I think that happens as we
No.
get older anyway,
Of
doesn't
course
it? We
it
kind
does.
of realise
Yeah.
that. But it can happen overnight. I mean, it can happen just in a moment. And that's what happens
Yeah.
when you get diagnosed with something like this, isn't it?
Yeah,
There's
you
nothing
lose,
slow
you lose
about
certainty.
Yeah,
you lose the certainty that you had, and I miss certainty. It was nice.
And being out of control, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
It suddenly, you've no control over events at all. Things are hurtling beyond your, beyond you, aren't they?
They are.
And so, your particular journey, Janie, you didn't have chemo or radiotherapy, did you?
I didn't.
No.
Didn't need it. No.
Yeah.
So I really was very lucky. As cancers go, I didn't need chemo. I didn't need radiotherapy. And they took the fat from my belly to make a new breast and gave me a flat belly. So it's like, well, that's not, that's not a bad one to get, is it? And they were pretty sure that it was curable. And so far, touching wood again, they appear to be right.
And, but that's because you went immediately. If you hadn't gone, you never know quite what would have developed, do you? So
no, and because it had already gone into, I think I say in the piece that I had 4 lymph nodes removed. When I looked at it, it had actually gone into 8 lymph nodes already. So it was kind of making its way around. So it was a good job I got it. My lovely GP saw me so quickly once I lifted up the phone. I was sort of in front of her with my bra off within 45 minutes. So that's very good going, isn't it?
It is. I mean, is there anything that you want to share that I've not asked you? Do you think in our little podcast here about this experience?
I think one thing that's very odd is that Sara Coward, who played Caroline Bowen Pemberton, she had so many names, didn't she, in The Archers?
She did.
She was very, very, very insistent I should write a piece about breast cancer, about her breast cancer, really. And I'd visit her when she was in the nursing home in particular, and she'd give me copious notes. I've got a whole folder of notes, and I did promise that I would write a piece about breast cancer, but I didn't realise I'd been writing it about mine, not about her. So I'm sorry about that, Sara. And I will write. I have in my head something to write about yours, but I was actually thinking of settling down to write this piece.
Yeah.
When it got overtaken by events.
Isn't that very strange? The universe should be sitting up on that cloud going, I told you to write it. I didn't expect we were going to have to go down this route to make you do it.
No,
Yeah.
It's a bit of a poke in the ribs, isn't it? Sort of getting it done that way.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to ask you, because it's so interesting for me to hear you read it. I've read it myself, or parts of it, at a literary festival, but you find something in it that I didn't. What's it like? Have you read a piece or played a living person before?
No, and I was terrified. Terrified. No, I've never done it before, and I was terrified because inevitably, because you want to get it, you just want to get it right, and I wanted to get it right for you, and I mean, you're so naturally, instinctively funny. I mean, that's the way you are. You're brilliant. But I think I was terrified that it was going to be all right, but we did work on it, didn't we? And we
did.
Recorded with Jake, and we recorded sort of several times in different bits of it. And I just wanted to make sure I was approaching it in the right way. I think I wanted to try and find the moments, which I hope I've done, which penetrated a little bit more of what was maybe going on internally, not just the funny bones, if you know what I mean. So because and actually it did seem to be there was an undercurrent somewhere there, there were just the odd moments when it was really painful, and it's like, when the specialist said to you, you've got big breasts and would you like them reduced, and you said, no, I like my breast, that I found a really it's mine, this is me, it's I'm sorry, I've taken that out of context, really. But he was a very nice specialist, wasn't he? I don't mean that, but he was trying to be helpful. He was trying to be, helpful to you. He was just giving you an option. But it's just moments like that, and when and before you went into surgery, that just those moments of just anxiety, which is completely natural and normal, Anyway, but it's such a beautifully written piece, and I think it is funny, and it does just highlight those black but comedic moments in our life, and you just see the funny side of it. Oh my God, have I got here? Have I got my nice new bra? And because we all do that. But it's a very hopeful piece as well, and you're very clear about the journey. Good. Which I think for somebody who's maybe embarking on it, or indeed, I've learned so much from it, and I haven't as yet, touch wood, ever been in that situation, but I may very well maybe. You've given me an awful lot of indicators and a lot of comfort, actually, about it, and the fact that obviously, you came out the other side of it. And I think that's the other thing to say, isn't it, Janie, that a lot of people do.
Yeah. That's the thing. Most of us do. Yeah.
I think one in eight of us will be diagnosed, won't we, with breast cancer, and for most, it will be treatable and it'll be curable. Is there any one bit of advice that you'd give to anybody listening now, who potentially may think, oh, is that a bit of a lump? Is there anything?
Just like I said earlier, just don't muck about. Don't do what I did and dick about with it. Just, your body. If it's a lump. I knew it was a lump. Just go to your GP, because for all that everyone says, oh, it's hard to get an appointment, blah, 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 blah. If you phone up your GP, speak to the receptionist and mention a lump, they'll have you in there. And if you think about it, if you do have cancer, the people who work in oncology departments, wherever they are in the NHS, privately in other countries in the world, I've spoken to people who've been treated all over the place in different settings. But one thing that we have in common is that the people that we came in contact with were kind and human, because I don't suppose you last very long in oncology if you're not a very nice person and if you're not empathetic. So you will be looked after. You will be looked after.
Well, yeah, I think, it's great. Anything else, darling, that you want to say before we maybe go and have a cup of coffee and talk about grey knickers and things like that?
I think we've put this in the show notes, but breastcancernow.org, that's the place to get some information from. There are lots of other breast cancer charities and the NHS website. Go there if you're at all worried, and good luck to you. Good luck to you all.
And of course, this is going out. Obviously, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, isn't it? It's October, so it's highlighting it as much as possible. And and I just want to say, well done. You're so inspirational, Jane. You truly are. And both you and darling Sara, our dear friend. Take care, and
you too.
See you for a glass of wine soon.
Keep checking those lumps.
Indeed. Okay. Bye everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to our One Stiletto in the Grave podcast. If you'd like to see behind the scenes clips and bonus content, please visit our Facebook page, One Stiletto in the Grave podcast. And if you'd like to ask any questions, follow us on Twitter at OneStiletto65. This podcast is produced by Raggedy House Productions and the music composed by Tom Smith. See you next time!